Part 1.
You will hear a conversation between a man and a woman discussing the loss of a bag on board a plane. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Listen carefully to the conversation and answer questions 1 to 5.
Pan Asian Airways, John speaking. Can I help you?
Yes, please. I left something on one of your planes last night. I got this number from the operator. Is this the right number to call?
Yes, madam, this is the right number. I just need you to tell me your name to start with so I can fill out a lost property form.
Kirsty Allen. That's Kirstyanlen.
Right, I've got that. Now, what happened last night?
Well, I was on a flight last night from New York to London that landed at 12:30 a.m. We were delayed a while in New York, so that when we eventually landed, I was so tired that I accidentally left my handbag on the plane.
Did you report this to anyone last night?
No, I'm afraid not. I didn't notice until I got home, and then it was really too late to phone.
Very well, madam. Let me take a few details for this form and I'll see what I can do. Okay, so the name was Kirsty Allen, and what's the address, please?
48 Wyndham Road, Richmond.
Okay, the postcode?
RI6GH7.
Good, I've got that. Now, your telephone number.
Well, my home number is 020-8927-7651, and my mobile is 07754-897-432.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the second one. What was the mobile again?
07754-897-432.
Thanks. Now, do you know the flight number of the plane that you were on last night?
Oh yes, hang on a second. I've got my boarding pass stub right here. The flight number was PA356. No, I'm sorry, PA365. That's it, 365.
And does the boarding card stub say what seat you had?
Oh yes, it was E6.
And you said that it was New York to London Heathrow, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Before the conversation continues, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 6 to 10.
Okay then. Now, I have to take some details about the bag that you lost. It was a handbag, yes?
That's right.
Can you describe it to me?
Well, I guess it looks just like any regular handbag. It's very dark red with black handles, and the catch on the top is gold-colored.
Does it have any distinguishing marks?
Not really. It's quite new, you see, so I haven't scratched it or anything. It's got a brand name, but that's just inside the bag when you open it, under the catch.
Okay. Now, can you tell me what was inside the bag?
Quite a few things, actually. Not my passport, of course, or I would never have got out of this airport. My purse is inside, and that's got about $200 and about 70 pounds cash. There's also my credit card and some membership cards.
Good. I'll just write that down. Anything else in the bag?
A small paperback that I was reading, some makeup, my work keys, not my house keys, thank God, and a couple of pens.
Have you informed the police about the loss of the card?
Yes, and I've also canceled the card with the credit card company.
Right. Now, what I'll do is to contact the lost property, which is where your bag would have gone if it was found. I'll give you a call back within an hour and tell you what the situation is. If you haven't had a call within an hour and a half, call back this number and ask for me. My name is John. Okay?
Yes, that's great, John. I'll speak to you later. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
That is the end of Part 1. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. Part 2.
You will hear the director of a science museum talking to the guides at the museum. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Good morning. I'm glad you were all able to come in this morning for a quick briefing on the new wing of the museum, which is due to open in a fortnight. There are 6 new galleries, plus some other facilities, adding about 40% to the total floor area. When I finish talking, please feel free to spend some time wandering round and getting familiar with the exhibits. As I said, we have 6 new galleries, each focused on a particular theme. The Robots Gallery contains a number of machines and numerous sketches by inventors, illustrating the 500-year-long quest to produce machines with human qualities and physical characteristics. There are also cartoons of robots from books and comics, showing how robots have long been a big part of popular culture. I'm sure you're all familiar with graphene. Well, this and other wonder materials now form the subject of a gallery. Since our latest press release about the new wing last week, there's been a lot of coverage in the papers and on TV, and interestingly, it's mainly focused on these materials. The new Gallery of Inventions That Were Never Made contains models of inventions that never got beyond the drawing board, like the Great Victorian Way, a 19th century project to build a 10-mile-long loop road in London covered in glass. The scale model we made of this a few years ago has always attracted a lot of visitors, and we've moved it into the new gallery. We've also added models of several other inventions based on the inventor's original drawings. The museum has always had an interest in modes of transport, and the new Land Travel Gallery contains a lot of exciting exhibits, including an up-to-date monorail that visitors can go into, though unfortunately they can't travel in it. We've also got a number of related objects on show, from toy models to tickets and staff uniforms, most of them, perhaps surprisingly, donated by visitors. Virtual reality is an area of science that's right at the cutting edge, and so we're planning to publicize it a lot, particularly using social media. This way, we hope to reach those young people who don't think museums are of any interest, but are familiar with virtual reality from video games. We particularly want to show that it has a valuable role in fields as varied as engineering, medicine, and the fine arts. And the last new gallery focuses on the history of forensic science, showing how science is used in relation to law, in particular to solve crimes. And I must say, it's absolutely fascinating. For instance, I was amazed to learn that the first account of forensic investigations was written in China nearly 800 years ago. We're very grateful that a police force has donated their collection to us, as they no longer had enough room for it, and more people will see it here.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
Right, so that was something about the new galleries. Now I'll talk briefly about the basement of that wing, which can be reached by going down the stairs close to the main entrance, or by lift. One of the main reasons for building the wing was to have enough room for a cinema. It just wasn't possible in our existing building. When you reach the bottom of the stairs, you'll see a sitting area in front of you. To get to the entrance to the cinema, you need to turn right into the corridor, and the door is on your right. It seats just under 100 people, so it's small enough to feel like quite an intimate space. In the existing building, there's a cafe, as you know, and the new wing has a restaurant, so we can serve meals rather than snacks throughout the museum's opening hours. From the sitting area, the restaurant is along the corridor to the right, and it's the second room you come to on your left. The kitchen is beyond the restaurant at the end of the corridor. Now, the shop, an essential source of income for any museum. Our hope is that by making its door the first one people get to on coming downstairs, they'll decide to have a look round before or after going to the cinema or restaurant. And finally, we've created a larger space for baby-changing facilities than we have in the old building. From the stairs, you go straight ahead, past the sitting area, into a short corridor, and you'll find the facilities on the left. OK, now please go and have a look at them.
That is the end of Part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Part 3.
You will hear a woman called Phoebe, who is training to be a teacher, talking to her tutor called Tony about research she has done in a school. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen and answer questions 21 to 25.
So, how did you get on with your school-based research, Phoebe?
Well, it was exhausting, but really valuable.
Good. What was the specific focus you chose?
My title is Attitudes Towards Study Among 11 to 12-year-old Pupils.
Right, and what made you choose that focus?
Well, that's a bit difficult. Lots of my classmates decided on their focus really early on, mainly on the basis of what they thought would help in their future career, in their first year's teaching.
So that's what helped you decide?
Actually, it was that I came across a book written by experienced teachers on student attitudes, and that motivated me to go for the topic.
OK. So what were your research questions or issues?
Well, I wanted to look at the ways students responded to different teachers, particularly focusing on whether very strict teachers made teenagers less motivated.
And from your research, did you find that was true?
No, not from what I saw, from my 5 days observation, talking to people and so forth.
OK. We'll talk about the actual research methods in a moment, but before that, can you briefly summarise what your most striking findings are?
Well, what really amazed me was the significant gender differences. I didn't set out to focus on that, but I found that boys were much more positive about being at school. Girls were more impatient. They talked a lot about wanting to grow up and leave school.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it is. From doing the research, it was clear to me that you might start out to focus on one thing, but you pick up lots of unexpected insights.
Right. Did you get any insights into teaching?
Yes, certainly. I was doing a lot of observations of the way kids with very different abilities collaborate on certain tasks, help each other. And I began to realise that the lessons were developing in really unexpected ways.
So, what conclusion do you draw from that?
Well, I know it's necessary for teachers to prepare lessons carefully, but it's great if they also allow lessons to go their own ways.
Good point. Now, I'm really pleased to see you doing this. Analysing and drawing conclusions based on data.
But surely this isn't proper data.
Because it's derived from such small-scale research. Well, as long as you don't make grand claims for your findings, this data is entirely valid. I like the way you're already stepping back from the experience and thinking about what you've learned about research. Well done.
But I know I could have done it better.
As you become more experienced, you'll find ways to reduce the risk of difficulties.
Okay.
Now you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
So, let's look in more detail at how you gathered your data. Let's start with lesson observation.
Well, it generally went quite smoothly. I chose my focus and designed my checklist. Then teachers allowed me into their classes without any problems, which surprised me. It was afterwards that the grueling work started.
Yeah, it's very time-consuming, isn't it? Making sense of analysing your observation notes.
Absolutely. Much more so than interview data, for example. That was relatively easy to process, though I wanted to make sure I used a high-quality recorder to make transcription easier. And I had to wait until one became available.
Right. And did you interview some kids as well?
In the end, yes. I talked to 10, and they were great. I'd imagined I'd be bored listening to them, but...
So it was easy to concentrate?
Sure. One of the teachers was a bit worried about the ethics, whether it was right to interview young pupils, and it took a while for him to agree to let me talk to 3 of the kids in his class, but he relented in the end.
Good. What other methods did you use?
I experimented with questionnaires, but I really regret that now. I decided to share the work with another student, but we had such different agendas it ended up taking twice as long.
That's a shame. It might be worth you reflecting on ways you might improve on that for future projects.
You're right, yeah.
OK.
And the other thing I did was stills photography. I didn't take as many pictures as I'd hoped to.
Lack of time?
It's pretty easy just snapping away, but I wanted each snap to have a purpose, that would contribute to my research aims, and I found that difficult.
Well, that's understandable, but...
That is the end of part 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Part 4.
You will hear a woman giving a lecture to a group of business students on subject of motivation at work. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 32. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 32.
My lecture today is on motivation at work. If managers are to improve the running of their organisation, it's important for them to understand what motivates the workforce, to know how to satisfy both the high flyers and those who have lower ambitions or ability. First of all, let's look at the model of how motivation works. You will see that every member of the workforce has needs or expectations, and these needs and expectations will affect each person's behaviour. For example, they will work harder if they know that they will be rewarded. That is, if they can achieve their goals of higher pay or promotion. The achievement of these goals will, in turn, lead to job satisfaction. This then feeds back into the worker's needs or expectations.
Before you hear the rest of the lecture, you have some time to look at questions 33 to 35. Now listen carefully and answer questions 33 to 35.
Over the years, the development of different theories of management and different approaches to organisation has affected the way we view motivation. In the 19th century, the writer Frederick Taylor put forward the theory that workers were only interested in making money. In contrast, in the early 20th century, researchers found that people went to work to satisfy a range of different needs, and not simply for financial reward. One need in particular was emphasised, the social need. An early study done on a coal mining company, for instance, showed that people generally were happier and worked more productively if they were able to work in teams.
Before you hear the rest of the lecture, you have some time to look at questions 36 to 37. Now listen carefully and answer questions 36 to 37.
One important 20th century theory of motivation was that put forward by Maslow in 1943. Maslow identified 5 important needs which he placed in a triangle. At the bottom of the triangle he put what he called basic needs, good pay and pleasant working conditions. Then above the basic needs he put security needs, safe working conditions and job security. His third need he called social needs, the need to have friends, at work, and get on with the boss. Fourth were status needs, a job title and social recognition. Finally, at the top of the triangle, Maslow identified the need for advancement, to have a challenging job with opportunities for promotion. His theory isn't perfect, but it's a convenient framework for viewing the different needs and expectations of work that people have. And what's more, I believe it's still valid today.
Before you hear the rest of the lecture, you have some time to look at questions 38 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 38 to 40.
During an early 21st century survey of full-time employees, when asked what gave them job satisfaction, 72% said having an inspirational leader. 55% of those questioned found satisfaction in the challenging nature of their work, 50% by being paid well, and 40% said flexible working hours. Consequently, we can see that this indicates that today an employee's opinion of the quality of the leadership in their workplace is an important factor influencing belief in the company as a good place to work. Motivation varies over a person's working life and also according to where they live. Studies show that people have different goals in different countries. For example, a good lifestyle would appear to be more important in Spain than it is in Sweden. Financial security is more important in the US than in the UK. Social contact at work is important to workers in both Germany and Australia, but not of top importance in Britain and Italy. As to high status, this is more important in the USA than to Europeans. These results indicate clear differences between countries, but I don't think they should be taken too seriously. There have been many theories which have attempted to explain the nature of motivation. These theories are partially true, and by and large all help to explain the behaviour of certain people at certain times. However, none really provides all the answers. The best a company can do is to provide people with the right environment to be self-motivated. If they are self-motivated, they will perform well.
That is the end of part 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet.